So now we can talk about complex numbers since we have an understanding of the imaginary number I. Um, complex numbers contain all the real numbers. So what is a complex number? A complex number is a number that can be written in the form a plus b times the imaginary number I. Now these numbers a and b are both real numbers. Okay? And furthermore, the number a here, whatever it may be, is called the real part. Okay, because it doesn't have the I next to it. The number b is what we call the imaginary part, because it has the I next to it. Now, what people often get confused on is the fact that just the b is the real part. The I is not part of it. Okay, so b is the imaginary part, not the I. B, being the imaginary part, just tells you where the I is. It tells you the I is next to it. Okay, so let's do some practice here. Here's a complex number, 2 plus 3i. The real part is 2. And the imaginary part is 3, not 3i. Okay? So the real and imaginary parts are both real numbers, but one of them happens to be next to I, so it's called the imaginary part. You know, for a minute it might be useful to discuss what real numbers are. So here are some examples of some real numbers. 2, -3, 7/2, pi, square root of 5, -0.003 repeating, and I don't know, another one might be 72.96. So fractions, decimals, positives, negatives, square roots, cube roots, pi, there's a number e that's a real number. So these are all examples of real numbers. Numbers that are not real are things like the square root of -2, the imaginary number I, because if you remember, the imaginary number I is the square root of -1. So things that aren't real are things that involve this number I, and the square root of -2 doesn't involve the number I, we just haven't seen it yet. And finally, complex numbers like 2 plus 3i. Okay, so that's the difference between real numbers and not real numbers. These not real numbers are called complex numbers. Okay, and that's what we're building up to. So the complex numbers contain every single real number. For example, 5 is a real number, but it's also a complex number because 5 can be written as 5 plus 0i. So it's also a complex number. So every real number is a complex number because it can be written with a 0 imaginary part. Okay? So some basics about complex numbers.